So I wanted to do my presentation on this whole 350 challenge thing. What I did, why, all that stuff, and I'm going to try to keep it really short and sweet. So this is saw number 4. Let's pop the top on saw number 4. So this saw number 4, is the OEM cylinder. It's an OEM mall cylinder. I got it from Brian Plust, actually. And Brian, this saw is yours, saw number 4. And it ran very strong. We'll see what the dyno results are. I haven't actually seen them yet. The timings, I was aiming for an 020 squish. I was aiming for an intake of 78. I was aiming for an exhaust of 105. The transfers were all measured at somewhere around the 125 mark. This one somehow ended up a little bit further down than that. But the saw ran real strong. So, Brian, this is yours. So the objective of this whole 350 challenge was to figure out whether or not, ported all to the same specs, an OEM cylinder will just simply crush the competition. And I would say the answer to that is no. I don't necessarily think the OEM cylinder is vastly superior to the aftermarket stuff. However, it does run very well. And we're going to look at the dyno here and see, and the dyno results, and see how that goes. The results that we got at the New York get-together, because it involved bars and chains and wood and whatnot, may not be nearly as telling as the dyno results. So I'm going to trust the dyno results. I will post photos of that eventually. I did see the dyno results for both saw number 4 and 5, and they're pretty darn close. So number 5 actually is my hyway saw, and let's bring up saw number 1 here too. I just happen to have this one here. I don't, this is saw number 1. I don't happen to have the others indoors with me right this moment, but I'm going to pop the top on this and let you see which one this is. Saw number 1 was pretty strong as well. So saw number 1 is actually the UK kit saw. Saw number 3 was probably the most disappointing. That was the Kafar kit, and if I had to guess which kit wasn't going to run quite right, it would have been that one. The confounders here. What didn't quite go so right? Well, the most annoying thing is that even though my saw number 5, my hyway saw, was really good, as far as I can tell, you can't buy that cylinder anymore. The cylinder that they have is an updated version, and it's not identical. So that's kind of annoying. What else? Didn't quite hit my numbers for all the timings, so that could be a confounder in all of this. The carburetors should all be basically the same. The Zamas or the Walbros or whatever, they're not the 359 intake track. They're all the ones that are specifically for 340s, 350s, that type of stuff. So I didn't hop up the carburetors at all. So to end this presentation, I'd like to thank the people at the New York get-together, 166 and Cut and Scott, for hosting and allowing me to do the challenge there. And also, of course, Dan, Paragon Builder, who's the host of the Connecticut get-together, for hosting, of course, and for Eric and Bill that put together the dyno, because ultimately that's pretty much the ultimate say on whether or not something is good or not. Thank you to Brian Plust for giving me the parts and all that stuff. So Brian, your saw is going to be on its way. I'm going to figure out which of these saws, number 1 or number 3, I'm going to keep and as a personal saw for myself, and I'm going to sell the other one on to probably a tree company. So Steve, you have a saw on its way, which will be fine. What else? If anybody has any questions, they can let me know. Thank you, of course, to HL Supply for supplying me with a bunch of parts here, per usual, and also for supplying me with a really sweet new hyway cylinder for comparison's sake. I am looking forward to using that cylinder in something. The old hyway cylinder, I think, is great. The new one is going to be good in different ways. So looking forward to playing with that. I'm not going to pop the top on the other two saws. Saw number 3 is the kafar kit, and saw number 5, of course, is my hyway saw. So no real need to pop the top on those. Brief discussion about Brad's saw. I did make a video on that. Thank you to Brad Snelling for sending up his version of one of these. And what he did was, his timings are a little bit different, and again, you can check out the video on that. But his saw was very strong and was probably a quarter to a half a horsepower higher than my saws 4 and 5 even were. So interesting thoughts on why that would be. He happened to have a 359 intake track on there. He seems to think that that would not necessarily make all the difference. He seems to think that the porting does make the difference. So I will be posting photos of all of those, of the port work and all that stuff, so you can see on the forums exactly what all that was. Anyway, I want to keep this short and sweet, so thank you for watching. Thank you for paying attention to my 350 challenge here. And my conclusion overall is that you can make a pretty strong saw with aftermarket cylinders. I do like the OEM cylinder, certainly. And for $105 these days, it's kind of hard to beat. I do also like the hyway cylinder. I don't really think, I think in that price range, those are the two that you're looking for. The conclusion that I would come to on between those two is pretty simple. If you plan on cutting a pop-up, then I would highly suggest using the hyway cylinder. You get a little better compression, probably. Again, this is mostly theory at this point, but the hyway cylinder, frankly, is much better plated than anything I've seen. It's really pretty. The OEM cylinder has a lip inside of it, and at where the combustion chamber meets the side wall of the cylinder, and because of that tiny little lip, you're actually better off cutting squishband, or at least polishing it. So if you're going to cut squishband or polish, I highly suggest using the OEM cylinder, because that cylinder is really nice to begin with, and all the bevels and everything are very smooth on it. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for paying attention to these 350 videos. I can now put these aside and have this not consume so much of my life. Please don't forget to subscribe. Have a great day, guys.